Hey guys, my name is Nibiri and it's time for another Synth Saturday, and I got a question about how I do my reverbs and I wanted to cover that today. So the things we're going to cover today is my general send reverb, how I use that in multiple ways for leads for example, and how and when I use small room reverbs for top leads or vocals. So let's start off with my normal send channel. So these are the settings that I use for my send channel. We take the signal that's coming in and we put a low cut on there. And the reason I put a low cut around 200 Hz is just because the rest underneath there is just going to be rumble when you're putting reverb over that. So I'm just putting a low cut before the reverb to just make it as clean as possible. And then I use Valhalla Room for my reverbs. I just bought it once and it just works, so that's why I'm sticking around with Valhalla Room. And about Valhalla Room, when you want to use it as a send, just put the mix to 100%, and that's because we are using it on a send channel, and the send channel is basically just a side track where only reverb is gonna come from in this instance. And then I have a pre-delay of 200 milliseconds. And that's because when you're working at around 150 BPM, one count is 400 milliseconds. So 200 milliseconds is kind of halfway. So the reverb just spaces nicely with the notes that are played, and you just get some nice space in between the sounds that are put through the send channel and the reverb that's coming out of it. Then for the decay, for hardstyle, you kind of always use big decays because we want our leads to sound huge, and pads as well, we're drowning those in reverb, so you just want a nice big decay. I like to go for a 6.92, but that's just because we can't put it to 7 exact unless you type in the value. The high cut, whenever you're opening a Valhalla Room, is at 8000 Hz, and it just worked for me, so I like to keep it at 8000, and I open up the depth all the way just because that sounds the best to me. And then we got this compression, and this compression is where it gets interesting. The settings of the reverb already give us quite a big tail, and this tail still dies out a little bit too quickly, and that's why I put reverb on there, just to keep the reverb alive a little bit longer, and I'll show you what I mean with that. So if we put our top lead, for example, through this reverb bus, and I don't have the compressor on here, you're just going to notice that it will sound nice, but it just dies out a little bit too quickly. And it's already gone by now. And if you put on the Pro C, put on a compressor on there, just turn down the threshold, lift a little bit of the output gain, so it keeps the reverb alive a little bit longer. You'll notice that with 7 seconds, it's just gonna stay there way longer. Normally it would have been gone by now. So it's just a nice way to create some more kind of thickness to your reverb. So whenever you're using a reverb on a send, I really recommend putting a compressor behind there and kind of compress that signal so you get more body out of your reverb. Now onto how I use this reverb send for lead, for example. So the reverb sends that I'm using in this with this melody for this instance are over here. Just one channel strip like we made it, and the other one is just the same, but I added a sidechain after that, and that's what we're going to come back to in a little moment. When you're sending your leads through that just the normal send, it's just going to put some reverb behind there. There's nothing special happening. As you can see, it's the same settings that we did in the other one. And I just copy and paste these settings to infinity and just use them in all my tracks, to be honest. So we've sent the top lead through here around 50%, a little bit more. So it just gives a nice wet reverb, but it doesn't drown the entire top lead. and it sounds like this. So it's behind there, but it doesn't drown the entire sound. But then the other way that I like to use my reverbs is with the sidechain on there. Like I said, it's the same settings, but all that I'm changing is I'm using this fruity limiter as a sidechain. And this sidechain is just gonna put a huge reverb, a huge feeling for this lead in there. It's gonna sound huge, but yeah, just keep the leads clean because of that sidechain. It's just gonna duck when the notes are playing, and it's gonna come up when there's space in between the notes. And I always start out with the sidechain reverb first, so we can really make it fit in with the leads. And over here, the way you're gonna listen to this is, for example, in this open space over here, you're really gonna hear that reverb fill up that space. Just have a little listen. So as you're probably hearing, this reverb sounds quite huge right now, but it's still way too dry when the notes are playing. And that's when that second reverb comes in without the sidechain. So it just adds a little bit more reverb in the back while these top leads are playing. And yeah, just gives a little bit more depth in there. Just have a listen, and I'll turn it on and off, and you'll really hear the difference between just one reverb that's sidechained and a sidechained reverb working together with a normal reverb. So it's really adding to the thickness of this reverb, and when this reverb fades out, it's also just making it way more deep. It's just sounding way more deep. Yeah, just have a listen how this reverb dies out. And I'm just halfway, I'm gonna turn it off so you really hear the difference. So it's just a nice way to create a huge sound and make two reverbs work together to create one atmosphere for your leads. And then the final type of reverb that I wanted to talk about is the small room reverbs that I sometimes like to put on my top leads, or you can put them on vocals. It's basically just reverbs that you're putting on channels themselves. And over here, we got one, for example. And the thing a little bit with this one is that you just listen to it and just tweak it till it sounds nice. There's no real settings that I'm copying and pasting through every track, but I'm just listening, thinking, hey, this needs a little bit more stereo, putting a reverb on there, and then I'm gonna think like how I want my small room reverb to be made. And there are some general rules for them, and I'll just explain them to you, and then it's up to you to practice with this to get this to sound nice. The reason we put the mix down quite low right now is because we put the reverb on the channel itself, so it's needing to have a dry signal with a wet just mixed in a little bit, so that's why we pull down the mix quite a bit. The pre-delay is there just because we want to have a little separation in between the notes and the decay. But because the decay isn't too big, you don't want to have it too big of a pre-delay, because then the reverb and the lead is just gonna fall apart. Let me just show you what happens when you put a too big pre-delay on a reverb that has almost no decay. You're just really gonna hear that this, it's just gonna fall apart. So that's not really working together quite well. But then if you pull down the pre-delay and maybe make the decay a little bit longer, you're just gonna have a nice room for around your top lead. You're just putting it in a nice little box so it has a little bit more stereo. Now I'll understand why you might be wondering why I'm using 3 reverbs on one, just on one lead. And I'll just show you what this final reverb really does as a difference. If we put on the send reverbs over here, just listen to how dry the top lead sound. And when I put the reverb in there, it's just gonna glue everything together. And that's why you want to use that extra reverb sometimes. Sometimes you don't, but that's why I like to use this third reverb, just to glue our top lead and the rest of the sounds together. So let's just start with it turned off, and I'll turn it on after a little bit, and you really hear probably how it just glues the entire reverbs together. So yeah, these are the type of reverbs that I'm using. Also, the thing I've showed you with my vocals, for example, is when I take a vocal, put it in a mixer channel, and put it on reverb on there. I just like to use a small room vocal or small room reverb for my vocals as well, just to give it a little bit more stereo. It's just sounding a lot better. You can just use this in a lot of instances in your tracks, for vocals especially, but also for leads. And just experiment with these small room reverbs. If you feel things need a little bit more, just a little bit more reverb, need to be put in a little box, just need to glue together a little bit better with the rest of your mix down. Now I hope you like this, and I hope you learned something from this, and hopefully I'll see you back soon again. Cheers!